Okay, everyone, welcome. My name is Rabbi Lawrence, those of you who do not know me. And the discussion this evening, it's a short class. We'll do like 30 minutes, okay? You can stop me at 30 minutes. I'm okay with that. I have a question, actually. I have a question. I like questions. What's more important, would you say, from your, I don't know, your Jewish learning background, your Hebrew school, if you survived that or not. If you're here, I'm assuming you did. But from your thought process, what's more important, our relationship with God or our relationship with each other? What would you say Judaism says about that topic? Is that a fair question? Does that make sense?
Well, I just haven't thought.
That's okay.
The question makes sense.
Does it make sense, the question? Is it an unusual
I think
question?
I have an answer, but it's, with Jews it's never yes or no. It's never this or that. It's always...
That is true. That is true. Is it a fair question, though? Is that a fair question? Does that make sense, right? I mean, we have certain things we do, when it comes to God. So we do something with each other, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Does Judaism put one over the other, is the question.
Well, I just don't think that there can be a one over the other, because isn't it sort of one and the same, right? So isn't our relationship with
So your answer is neither?
No.
Or both?
It's an impossible question.
Wow.
Because our relationship with people is our relationship with God. So
well, thank you very much for coming tonight, everyone. I'm really just very good. Okay, thank you very, very much. Yeah, you wanted to say something?
I was going to say something similar, but I'll change it up. Just
to mix it up. Hi, welcome. No problem. Yes.
So if you have a good relationship with God,
whatever that means.
Then you believe in God. Okay. Then one of the mitzvot, I wouldn't say the most important, but standing on one foot is so if you have a good relationship with God, then supposedly you will treat everyone else.
Based upon what you two have said and what probably most of you are thinking, I would like to go further and give you an answer, interestingly, not from something which you can hear, and not from something you can understand, but something you can see. It's actually a visual answer to this question. The question for those who just walked in was, what's more important, a relationship to God or our relationship to each other? Does one take precedence over the other? And by the way, the question is very important because there could be a lot of laws that come up and scenarios you can think of where you're going to have to choose one over the other. And that could happen, right? Can you imagine that? No.
All the time.
Okay, that's fair enough. there could be certain scenarios you come up where I can either do something I'm meant to do towards God, right? Keep Shabbat, for example, keep the Sabbath, which is, and something I can do for my friend who's, I don't know, very sick. All right? Can you imagine that? So that scenario makes sense? Is that for the cucumber you're eating or for the...
Both.
Okay, good.
I'm not so sure that you can contrast them like that. I'm not so sure that you can put one at a higher priority than the other.
That's an answer.
I
That's an
what
answer.
Saying is that
He's saying that, what's your name?
Eric.
Eric's saying, you know what, this is an impossible question. Yeah?
Well, but say it's the same Saturday and one of your friends is sick in the hospital, or you have to drive there, or you can stay home and keep Shabbat, then you have to pick one over the other.
Sometimes I have to pick one over the other. Yes?
I mean, it obligates you to save a life if it's on Shabbat, so...
It does obligate you to save a life on Shabbat,
So
that's
that
right.
kind of
For saving a
implies-
life, we push away pretty much all the mitzvot to save a life. Yeah, that's an extreme example, but that's very, very true. Yeah?
Well, like a less extreme example that I encountered recently, because I didn't grow up religious, a lot of my friends aren't religious. So when the terrorist attacks happened in Paris, my best friend is there, and I found out after Shabbos, and she got really mad at me because I didn't contact her until Shabbat was over. And she's like, "So you're putting that over me?"
Over friendship, right?
So that's a less extreme example.
That's
of
difficult.
That,
That's pretty extreme, actually.
But it's not she was gonna be alive or not alive either way.
Thank you for that.
That's kind of
Yeah.
I have a non-extreme and an extreme example. I think show that maybe Bethel Mechaber was a little bit more
Well,
important.
isn't that expression, just because using a lot of Hebrew really thrown out of, I don't know people's background. So basically this question is divided up into Bein Adam LeMakom, between us and God. Makom is one of the names of God, it means place. Right? Why would the word place be one of the names of God? Because God occupies all of space, yet is not contained within it. That's usually how we say it. That's one type. and the other is bein Adam lam chavero, us between and each other. So pretty much all of Judaism can be divided up in many ways. This is one of the famous ways between us and God, between us and each other. So yeah.
So one thing I'm thinking of is people who keep Shom Nikia, men who don't touch women and women who don't touch men. I've always learned that if someone approaches you who doesn't understand that, you should still shake their hands because you shouldn't embarrass somebody.
There are such opinions that may say that. Embarrassing people is one of the worst things you can do to a person. And by the way, when it comes to children as well, just throw it in as a father. One of the worst things you can do is embarrass your kids, you know, which you're all going to do. Just the way you do it, you know. Just your parents did it to you, and you'd be like, I'm never going to do my kids. I'm never going to drop my kids off wearing like terrible clothing, sweatpants, you know, and complete mess and disheveled, you know, and the woman's in her rollers, you know, the hair things, and I'm never does my kids, and I take my kids to school now. I'm like, you know. Yes, that would be a very nice example. Okay, let me just jump into this a bit more. But you're all thinking this is beautiful, so check this out. There is an answer to this question which is fascinating, which is based upon the design of the 10 Commandments, which happens to fall into this week's Torah portion, which happens to be all about the 10 Commandments and the giving of the Torah to the Jewish people, which also happens to be my Bar Mitzvah portion, because it happens to be my birthday, my Hebrew birthday, right now. Thank you. No, please don't. Checks later. Anyway, so you walk into most synagogues in the entire world, and there's a design that greets you. Does anyone know what the design is that most synagogues have somewhere depicted in the synagogue? Two tablets. Now, what is the sign? With your finger, everyone just draw out for me the design of the tablets. Right, like M. Right, like the McDonald's sign. I should make that comparison. Right, that M kind of design. That was not the original design. The original design, interestingly enough, was 2 square blocks. Right, large blocks, and the letters were etched in. Actually, according to our tradition, they were etched right through the entire block. Okay. So we have 613 laws in our Torah. 10 were taken out, and they were etched into these blocks. Okay. Why, we'll see a little bit later. There's obviously a difference between, well, how do you graphically put something on display? One is to etch into something, and the other is to emboss it, right? So when you write on a Torah, it's ink on the parchment. But when you chisel something into something else, you're taking that space and you are invading it, if you will, but it's much, much longer, okay? It lasts much longer, and it seems to have more prominence and more importance. So these 10, whatever they are, we're going to run through them very, very quickly in a couple of moments, so bear with me. But they were etched in, right? Chakuk ala luchot, it says. Cut in. I have a question. Why did God see it to put the 10 Commandments, whatever they are, we'll assume they're important commandments, on 2 separate tablets? Why couldn't God have just found one big block and just boop, 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 1 through 10? Michelle, is that a fair question? Do you understand the question? I'm sure you're very, very smart, right? Why would it be? Just put it into your minds for a second. Put it through your heads. I want you to think about it. See, I know you know the answer. See, when I teach college very close to here. When someone puts their hand, and you don't want to hear them, I want to look at the person who's like, don't pick me. Please, Rabbi, don't pick me. Those are the ones I pick up. Why would he hear the questions? Basically, assuming God could do it, just take one big block. Why 2 separate ones? If I send you, what's your name again?
Karen,
beautiful. Unless I send you shopping. All right, do me a favor, we're doing an event tonight. Could you go and get me something? Yeah, sure, Rabbi, happy to do it. I'm like, take this list. And you write down the list, and you're like, okay, we need to have a sushi, Jewish event, you know. We need to have some food. We need to have some meat, right? Jews like meat. We need some alcohol. And you say, 1 second, let me another piece of paper out to put the other 5 items on there. You wouldn't do that. You choose one long list. Mm-hmm. So why exactly do we need to have 2 blocks? What's the difference? Would anyone who didn't know the answer to this question before like to offer an answer? I didn't say you did know, but I assumed you did.
To delineate 2 halves?
Okay. You're delineating something, but what are you delineating?
Sets of planets?
True. But why are you delineating them? Why are you separating them? Yeah.
I'm guessing, I don't know the order, but is it the first 5 are in their relation to God, and the second 5 are in their relation to people?
Very good. That's what you're going to say? You're going to say the same thing? Very, very good. You also get the merit for saying it. Excellent. The first 5 are between us and God. The second 5 are between us and each other. And actually, these 10 are the roots to all the other commandments and everything else we do in Judaism. Somehow, you can link back everything we do in Judaism back to these original 10. They are the roots of the tree. They may not be the most important or the strictest, most detailed commandments, but what they do is they are the roots that everything else stems out from. Okay, if you find them in there, so it's not exactly like, they've let them as top 10. Kind of like, let's do the top 10 commandments and stick them in there. That's not what's going on. The same about these 10 are the roots, but there is one very interesting, the first between us and God. So why were there 2 separate tablets? You can still put one tablet with 1 through 10, 1 through 5 between us and God, and then 6 through 10, us and each other. What's the answer to that? Yeah.
I'm sort of throwing this out here, but is it because it's separate but the same?
Very nice, yeah.
When you put them next to each other, they line up with each other.
Fine. So when you put something, that I'm going to get to in a second, but to get your answer first, when you put something next to something, what are you saying? They are both equal, important, separate, different but important. You can't say, you could say that, my relationship to God, that's what it's all about, I'll keep kosher, I'll keep Shabbat. Your question, he goes, are you Jewish? I'm like, well, gave it away, my nose. So he's like, can I ask you a question? So he asked me, questions. And about this and about the tribes. He was obsessed with King David and stuff like that. So I was like scouring my, lost knowledge of Hebrew school and Jewish day school, yeshiva and all the rest of it, trying to pick up bits and pieces and gather them together. And then he says to me, I have a question about the 10 Commandments. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness. I've been in yeshiva my entire life. And I was, 19, 20? And I didn't know the 10 Commandments. And it was so embarrassing. He asked me a question. I was like, that's a good question. Which I still say when I don't know the answer to stuff. I was like, ooh, that's a good question. And I was embarrassed. I ran straight home. And this was before the internet, obviously. Although I'm only 25. And, no, I'm 44. And I went straight home and I did nothing at all. But many years later, I said, I've got to, what are these 10? Why do they stand out? Where's the movie named that? We all saw the movie, right? So I decided to read the book. And it says to be the mill and all that. It's fantastic. But I want to know what's up with the whole story. Okay. So what I found was something really, really fascinating. And it goes like this. Commandment number 5 is honor your mother and father. Okay? That's commandment number 5. That should be on the side of between us and each other. That's human mitzvah. It's on the side between us and God. So that number 5 actually has obviously got something to say about our relationship to God. Our relationship to God is based upon our relationship to our parents. Actually, your parents and you one day as well will be mini gods, if you will. Right? You make decisions for your kids. You help create them. Okay? So to some degree, it fits in over there. Okay, fine. But it goes like this. Check this out. We'll get another 10 minutes, but I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. Are you ready? Say yes, Rabbi.
Yes, Rabbi.
It goes like this. Not only is there a vertical connection 1 through 5 and 6 through 10, the fact they're put next to each other means there's a horizontal connection as well. Otherwise, why are they next to each other? Just put them separate places completely. That means number 1 is connected to number 6, 2 to 7, 3 to 8, 4 to 9, and 5 to 10. Which means we're now going to blend together, and we'll do just a few of them because there's a lot, but we'll just do a few of them just to show you how actually there is a complete synthesis between our relationship to God and our relationship to each other, just like someone mentioned right before, yeah? There's a complete coming together. You cannot separate them. They're different, so they're on 2 different stones, but you cannot separate them because they are one. So we'll play a game for the remaining time we have together, okay? I'm going to tell you the commandment, tell you a little bit about it, and you tell me the connection. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone get what I'm going to do? Let's start with number 1. What's number 1?
There is a God, or there's one God.
I'm
God.
You are? Should have
No.
told me. I would have dressed up better. Yes. It says, I'm the Lord your God. Some actually that's a command, and some say that's just a basic statement. Right? What are you going to do about that? You know, it just is. It's a statement, you know? Interestingly, the Hebrew word for I is ani. It doesn't say that. It says anochi. What's anochi? Anochi is slightly, no one says that in modern Hebrew nowadays. No one says anochi olech lechanut. Right? I'm going to the store, right? You say ani olech. So anochi actually is an acronym for 4 words. Ana, nafsha, ketavit, yahavit. I, this is God speaking, my soul, whatever that means, has been written and given. That means if you want to know God, we start by looking in the Torah. Everything you need to know about the spiritual world somehow is encoded in here. Okay, that's how it begins. Okay. By the way, what does it say right after this? I'm the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. That's a strange opener. I mean, assuming the 10 Commandments are like God's business card. I mean, if God has a business card, that would be a pretty good one, right? I mean, walk in an interview, put that down, it's like smoke and steam and dirt coming up everywhere, you know, like, yeah, you got the job. If you were God, which for some of you may be easier to imagine than others, how would you start? I'm the Lord your God who?
Created you.
Created you, right? Your heart's beating right now? That's because of me. Whoa, that's impressive, right? Had a good morning? That's because of me. Lungs working nicely, breathing, you can see? That's because of me. All right, you got the job. It doesn't say this. It says, I'm the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. Why does it say that? In short, it's a very important statement. Crucial. Because up to the whole Egyptian experience for the Jewish people, there was a belief in God. There was a knowledge of God. But God was always far away, distant. And God had to be appeased. Right? The Egyptians were very famous for trying to appease their God. Right? You had the god of the Nile. Right? And the god of the fish. Right? Dagon. You know, the Ra. Right? The sun god. They were trying to appease God. Suddenly, Moses turns up and says to Pharaoh, God is love. It's a very new idea. I mean, other religions have captured that since then, but that's a very, very unique idea in its time. No one was saying it. Nobody at all. So we move from a distant God who just maybe created the world, right? There's a certain power, but suddenly we're like, who took you out of Egypt? That means your great-great-great-great-great-grandmother and your great-great-great-great-grandfather were slaves and they were taken out. It's a personal relationship. So actually the whole Egyptian experience and the exodus from Egypt, the whole Pesach story, is about the personal relationship that any person can have with God. Very interesting concept, which really didn't exist up to that point. Well, maybe for individuals, but definitely not a nation. Let's jump to the other side. What's number 6?
Adultery? No.
No
Steal?
murder.
Do not murder. That's good. I'm pleased you said murder and not do not kill. Why do I say kill? Because a person can kill. Right? You can kill. Engage in self-defense. A person comes to attack a person. You have to kill them. But this debate is happening all the time, right? In Israel today, with these horrendous attacks, right? The question is, can you preempt a death by killing somebody else? These are very important and big questions that need to be asked and are being asked. Okay. So it's do not murder. Okay. Can I ask you a question? What's wrong with murdering someone? It's like a strange question for a rabbi to ask, but just pull ourselves back. Let's just open our heads. What's actually wrong with murdering someone?
It's like you're playing God.
Okay. That's true. Yeah.
Isn't there something about it's not our we don't have that authority to take.
I'm asking, you're being too deep. What's wrong with killing somebody else? What's wrong with me walking outside right now? I'm very, very hungry, seeing an old lady, Mrs. Cohen, with a pocketbook, saying, you know what? I'm starving. Taking a brick, smack her on the head, killing her, taking a pocketbook, and buying some dinner for myself.
It's immoral.
Is that a bad thing to do? Let me ask you a question. You ever watch those National Geographic channels? You know? Sometimes it comes up on Facebook, and that's as close as you get to it. Right? And you see, like, the lion chasing the... I don't know. Gazelle, great. And secretly, we want the gazelle to get away for some reason. The lion has to eat. But anyway, imagine the lion catches the gazelle. People complain, how dare you kill that animal? How dare you? Right, go arrest the lion, put him in handcuffs and drag him away. How come he's allowed to do that for his dinner, and we're not allowed to do that for our dinner?
We did that for our dinner. We had deli.
Yeah, but why can't we... We did have deli, you're absolutely right. We did have meat. But why can't we kill those from our own species? Yes.
It breaks the social contract. You can't have a society.
So, say the many philosophers, right, there's a social contract. Don't do it to others because they might do it to you and it will end up with havoc. So actually, that's very interesting. You're saying there's nothing inherently wrong with it. We just don't want to be everyone dead, really. We've got to just kind of live together. Right, there's people who think like that. Right, that was university. We studied many writers who spoke like that. Why else? So that's the connection. First of all, you've got to admit that the fact that we humans consider it to be abhorrent to do it, or we should consider it abhorrent, and for animals it's absolutely fine to kill their own species, or even the young. We don't arrest certain animals for killing, eating their spouses after mating, right? And eating their children, all the rest of it. We just kind of accept it as part of the animal kingdom. We immediately accept there's more to us than that. There's a spiritual aspect to us humans. There's a high level that we're expected to aspire to. It's a godly thing. So there's a connection. And what's the connection? Acknowledgement. Commandment number 1, I acknowledge God. Commandment number 6 is I acknowledge everyone else by not killing them. Right? I mean, the biggest diss you make to someone is to kill them. So that's the key concept that comes out of this contract. See? Let's do another one. This is very, very fascinating. Commandment number 2.
Oh my God.
I'm the only God.
Right, you can't worship idols. Okay? We Jews are really against idol worship. American idol worship, we're not so bad. Not so bad. But idol worship, we're not so good. What's wrong with idol worship? What's the big deal? A person wants to bow down to a stone, a tree. I'm assuming they're not nuts. Okay, what's the big deal with it? Why do we just make such a big deal that actually made commandment number 2?
God doesn't want competition.
Is it that what it is? God doesn't want competition?
He's selfish.
God is selfish.
Or she. It.
It uses both, actually, male and female. You can use both. Different names of God and one a female, interestingly. Yeah?
Kind of distracting.
Let's jump to the other side. Let's make it a little bit simple. Hold on one second, if you don't mind. Let's jump to the other. What's on the other side? Commandment number 7.
That's deal.
That is
That's deal.
adultery. Adultery. Sorry, maybe some bad news for you. You can't commit adultery according to Judaism. I mean, a shock to some of you out there. I don't want to, knock over that one.
But polygamy was allowed.
Polygamy was allowed,
Like
but that was
grey area.
right. But about 1,000 years ago, it was forbidden. Right, a man could take more than one wife at certain points in Jewish history. By the way, for the most part, it was a failed experiment. But taking someone who's married to somebody else,
Correct. Yeah.
that's forbidden. Now, what's wrong with that? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Good, let's try that again. It's 2016 and nothing's bad. Everything's, there's no milk or fleishik, meat or milk. It's all power now, right? Is adultery good or bad?
It's whatever.
Okay, we're going to assume it's a bad thing, right? There's one last thing we can actually make a little judgment on. Not a good thing. You marry someone. Why? Why? Let's say she never finds out. Or he never finds out. What's the big deal?
That's okay. It's fine.
That is okay?
Yeah.
You're breaking a commitment.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, what are you saying?
You're breaking a commitment.
What's the commitment?
The commitment, well, I made the connection. I didn't know in my head.
Okay.
But so the commitment was to your spouse and your.
Where did you make this commitment?
Ooh, in front of God.
Under the chuppah! Under the chuppah, made a commitment. That's why you have all these guests at the wedding, not just to eat the hairy chicken, right, and dance badly, right? The reason you have all the people present at a wedding is they can celebrate with you, and you make a public declaration that he's mine and she's mine. And all of you cannot get involved in this. We're creating a new Jewish family over here. That's what it's actually meant to be. You made a commitment of exclusivity. That's the commitment you make. What's wrong with idol worship?
You're breaking the same.
There's a certain exclusive relationship we made at Mount Sinai, which itself, by the way, is compared to as a chuppah. It's a whole. When we get to Shavuot, I'll give you more on that, God willing, or later on. But that's actually the commitment you make, is an exclusive relationship. Yeah.
Why isn't the idol worship one paired with the I am God one? Wouldn't that make more sense?
It is actually. One is I am the Lord your God, and two is don't worship idols. Actually, those two are actually the opposites of each other. Number one is oneness, and number two is the plurality. And actually, all the positive commandments, the stuff you should do, are actually located at number one, and all the stuff you shouldn't do are located at number two. So they're actually paired off as well. And actually, they were the only two that were actually given firsthand by God to the entire Jewish people. After that went through Moses, but we heard God directly for those two. So they are actually paired off, those two, number one and two. Absolutely. So we could go on for a long time, but I also want to jump to the last couple because that's my favorite one. Okay, and the other ones are also fascinating. We'll do them another time. But I want to jump to number 5 and number 10. Did you go to Cornell that you knew the answer to that? I can see. Very good, Michelle. Brilliant. You should be an engineer. You like this, right? The whole thing? You like engineering? That's it. Okay, commandment number 5 is
Honor your parents.
honor your father and your mother. Okay? Elsewhere it says you should fear or be in awe of your mother and father, but that's elsewhere, and the order has changed over there. By the way, it doesn't say you have to love your parents. Interesting enough. I mean, nice if you do, but you have to honor them. And by the way, that's there's laws behind this. You know, for example, you're not allowed to sit in your father or mother's chair if they have a constant seat. Right? If they have like a lazy boy that's always their chair, you know, with the remote control and the beer and the rest of the music system, you know. You can't sit in their chair. You can ask permission. They can give you permission. I actually don't let my kids sit in my chair. I'm like, you shouldn't know. You know that? You shouldn't sit in my chair. Okay, my son jumps into it, you know. But they should know. You're not allowed to call your parents by their first name. Do you know that? If your father's name is Harry, hey Harry, what's up? You know, I shouldn't do that. Right? You say mother, father, right? Abba, Imma, you know. When your father and mother walk into a room, check this law out. You're actually meant to stand up for them. I mean, not every time, because you're like a yo-yo up and down, you know. But at least once when they walk in, you should, like, you know, give them some respect, you know, rather than just like sit on your phone or whatever. Yeah, you know. So, man, there should be like. Nowadays we live in this. Everything's meshed in, you know. Kids are the parents' best friend, you know. Not so good. Kids want parents. I spoke to a therapist about this, a good friend of mine, Liz Weinstein. I said, give me the best parenting tool you have. Brilliant therapist, one of them. What's the best? She said, the best thing you do for your kids is to say no. And I just give them whatever they want. My wife says no. You just have one, you know. I give whatever they want. They're screaming, just take a cookie. Here, take the keys. Okay, I know you're 7 years old, just go. Enjoy, knock yourself out. You know? Okay, so let's go to number 5, okay? Honor your mother and father. What's on the other side? Fascinating. You should not be jealous. What's weird about that commandment? I mean, you didn't do all of them, but you should have a feel for it at this point. That's an emotion. How can you command an emotion? I mean, that's a big discussion. Not for now, but I will say the fact you commanded not to do it means you can and are expected to control your emotions. Some say that number 10 is actually the most important out of all of them. Because once you start with jealousy, then you start to want to take people's things, stealing. Then you want to start taking people's spouses. Then take liberties when it comes to relationship with each other. And you end up denying there's a God. Everything gets thrown away. It's actually number 10, although number 10 could be like the foundation. Out of all the character traits that are out there, jealousy is the only one that appears. And it's number 10, like houses all the rest of it inside. By the way, what's the most important philosophical concept that comes out of this number 10? Don't be jealous of people's things, what they own and stuff. You know, their hair, their eyes, their lack of hair, right, their nose, whatever it is, you know. That everything you have is decided. And everything you have is what you need. And what other people have is what they need. And you don't need it. It's the idea of what we call in Hebrew, hashgacha pratit. That God actually controls what you have. If he didn't, then you can want whatever you want. And try to get it. And some say actually the way to break this commandment is by actually trying to get that stuff. Right? You don't get like, oh, that's a nice Ferrari. You know, and suddenly like you get, you know, pulled away. You know? But what's the connection? Number 5 is honor your mother and father. Number 10 is don't be jealous. And we'll finish with this.
what you have is from your parents, at least genetically. So if you're wanting other things that they couldn't give you, it's like you are throwing away what they did give you.
Michelle, beautiful. Number one, I'll tell you what Michelle just said, and she said it very beautifully, by the way. She said, what you have, at least genetically, right, it's from your parents. The eyes you have, right, the nose, the hair, lack of, right, or whatever it is, it's from your parents. Don't be jealous and say, if I had eyes like that, if I had a body like that, then I could be me. Don't be jealous. Honor your mother and father. And it's not just genetically. Your education you had, the way you're brought up, your social mores. There's a reason the parents you have are the parents you were given. There is no coincidence. The parents you have are the ones you were given for a specific reason, good or bad. Don't be jealous. Now, if I had parents like that, I could be a better parent. If my parents were the rich, if I had Trumps as parents, maybe that would be it. But if I had that parent, if I had them, then everything would be fantastic for me. Don't be jealous. The parents who were given for the exact reason. One. I'll give you another answer, which I heard from a great rabbi, Rabbi Uziel Malevsky. He passed away. He was the chief rabbi of Mexico, and he was also a rabbi in Canada for many years. And I heard this on a tape. Remember those tapey things? For your time. Many, many years ago. He gave a beautiful answer. What makes you Jewish? Parents, right?
Your mother.
Your mother makes you Jewish, right? That's what makes you Jewish, yeah? What about her? Her mother. What makes her? Her mother. And her mother, all the way back to the first ever Jewish mother, right? Sarah. Right? Or go back to Mount Sinai, we're going to go back. You could say, if I had some other religion, if I could just be a Buddhist, be a Jew, you know, Jewish Buddhists, the Jew-boos? I don't know what they do. They were like orange sheets and like light menorahs. That's what they're doing over there. Right? If I could be a Muslim, if I could be Christian, if I could be this, if I could be more spiritual, right? Go to the ashram. No, honor mother and father means honor the traditions that have been passed down from your parents. Because, interesting, you don't choose a religion, right? You're born into it. It's not a coincidence. It didn't have to be that way. God could have said, you know, you're a certain age, you just choose. I mean, that's what we'll do ultimately anyway. But that's not the idea. The idea is you're born into it and that becomes part of who you are. So your parents end up representing their parents, represent their parents all the way back to the beginning. Don't be jealous that, well, if I could have a different form of religion, everything would be fantastic. You should honor where you came from, your traditions, and your heritage. Don't be jealous, yeah.
If your parents aren't religious at all, and you become religious, are you dishonoring their tradition of choosing to not be religious?
Great. I've been asked that before. That's a very tricky question. Yeah, that one? Your parents are not, right? Your parents probably aren't. But I guarantee you that every irreligious person today had at least a grandparent or a great-grandparent that was. Actually, I know it for a fact. Why? We'll discuss the Pesach time, because that's what we learned out from the four sons. But everyone that I know always has at least one religious great-grandparent. Usually a grandparent. They always say, oh my God. Always like pull out a photo. Everyone's got a photo. My great-grandfather was the rabbi back in Chelm and Lodge and this and that. Everyone's grandfather was a rabbi. How can that be? It's not a coincidence. They identify as Jewish because their great-grandfather was like that. Great-grandmother was she lit the candles. They always have this thing. So the answer is, you're dishonoring them maybe, but they're dishonoring their heritage. So how far back do we go?
It says parents though, so why does it say
So parents means your tradition, your heritage, which we all come back from the same heritage. So you're not. Yeah.
I heard a different answer to that question, but it was because of the values they instilled. It may not be religiously, but because of the values that they instilled, and from those values you chose to grow religiously, you're incorporating it into your new lifestyle.
You can't disrespect them, by the way. No matter who your parents are. Can I give you? No, not you. A person. I don't mean. I'll give you a very, very interesting story from the Talmud. Talmud tells a story of a non-Jew, interestingly enough, a non-Jew who had extreme respect from his father. And I'll give you just a short version of it. Imagine you've got a young boy, it's the modern day version, whose parents kick him out at the age of 5. Say, you're a little bum, get out of here. He works his way through school, he works, side jobs, lives on people's couches. He then gets into a good university, amazingly, pays itself off by himself. Parents say nothing. He then gets to Harvard Law School. He graduates, comes out of the highest. He then goes to a top law firm. He works there for years. He then gets elected to the Supreme Court of America. He's on television about to be sworn in. His parents walk in after 45 years, walk over to him, slap him in the face, spit him and say, you were a bum, you're still a bum. The rabbi, this guy in the Talmud, non-Jew of the Talmud, kept his mouth shut. It was actually Rome, and you're sitting with the Caesars at the time, the other Roman officials. The mother walked in and slapped him, he didn't say anything. Honoring your mother and father is actually the most difficult mitzvah in the entire Bible. 100 Yom Kippurs are easier than one day of actually getting that mitzvah right. They actually say that Esther, from the Purim story, only got so successful because she was an orphan. Had she had to deal with parents, she would have messed up. Because the merit that she had to accrue, right, would have been completely invalidated by the mess up she gave to her parents. It's tough. And I'm a parent at this point in my life. It's so hard. Okay. So even so irrelevant of your parents, there's still an obligation to honor them. Okay? If they're abusive, you can separate yourself from them under circumstances. Okay? But you can't be disrespectful towards them. Yeah.
Kind of, maybe this is connected, I'm not sure, but the only situation where you can not obey your parents is when your parents tell you to break, like, kashrut or whatever, or break some kind of...
very good. So sometimes very, very good. So actually,
I feel like if you flip that on its head, that kind of means, spirituality is above honoring your parents.
Right. Doesn't mean you can disrespect your parents, but if your parents say, go kill that person, right, or you don't eat pig and say, go eat that pig, you can say no to them. Actually, the proof is, because the law to honor your mother and father is below the law to keep Shabbat, which is one bar, that's number 4 of the 5, actually, okay? So actually that does take precedence of it. That doesn't mean, however, you can completely discard your parents for... This has been fantastic. Thank you all I love the interaction. Thank you all for coming. I will not be here next week. I will be at a wedding. However, got to win the week after that. For those who are interested, we're starting a Monday night program. You can turn it off at this point. Thanks, mate. Hit the red button.